and now you look back in retrospect and you didn't kind of realize it, but she just hated everybody and just luxuriated in hurting kids and breaking them. She was cruel. So we've probably all heard people say things like, Peter was a great kid and loved school until he spent a year in Miss So-and-so's class, or Rob never recovered from the tormenting he took from Coach D, like middle school PE coaches who were just diabolical and would luxuriate in just trying to crush the souls of the kids that they had. You always ask the question, good grief, if you hate children and you don't like being around children, why would you become a teacher? Because you're a diabolical narcissist and you enjoy hurting people, and kids are easy targets. I mean, there's not much more of a target-rich environment than being shut alone in a room with 15 kids or 20 kids all day long, and you just have carte blanche to do whatever you want to them. And you have a teachers union behind you, which is populated also with diabolical narcissists who will make sure that you never get fired. You can be the most horrible person in the world and all the kids can hate you, and you can be breaking kids right and left. You'll never get fired. Let's talk about Marxism and liberalism. What these things are political diabolical narcissism, the dethroning of God and the deification of man. Does this sound familiar at all? Humanism. It's just another word for diabolical narcissism. All for man. That was the slogan of the Soviet Union. All for man turns into all for me. Okay? That's a quick jump to make. Diabolical narcissists can be created by mental torture, and many Marxists have done this. A great example is the Nazis. The way the Nazis would create armies of diabolical narcissists out of completely normal adult men is they would have a squad that they wanted to, for example, send to the camps, the extermination camps, and you need to have men that will just do absolutely anything in order to man those camps. So they would have the men together as a unit, and they would give them as a mascot for the unit a German Shepherd dog. German Shepherd, smart dog, likable dog. They'd all become attached to the dog. The dog would be allowed to be in the barracks and be around. And as soon as the entire squad was genuinely attached to this German Shepherd dog, they would call them out onto the parade grounds. They would all line them out in formation there so that they could see, and then they would take the dog up onto the dais and they would torture the dog to death in front of the men. And the men would be horrified, and some of them might even cry as it went on and on, as they stood there and were forced to watch this dog that they had grown to love and become attached to being tortured to death brutally in front of them. And then when the dog was dead and it was over, everybody would go back and they'd wait a while, and then they'd give them another German Shepherd dog. And they'd wait until they were attached, and they would go back out onto the parade ground, and they would torture the dog to death in front of them, and they would observe. And a lot of them this time around were affected but less affected. And the interesting thing about all this, they do it a third time. They just keep going and going and cycling through this until the men didn't react anymore. Then they knew that they had descended into diabolical narcissism. Here's the interesting thing about this. So the men purged love from their hearts by having it, forcibly taken out of them by this torture of the dog thing. Every time they would get a new dog, though, they would still engage the dog and be what appeared to be affectionate with the dog. They would still engage the dog. They wouldn't refuse to deal with it. That wasn't what happened. They would still engage with the dog. It's just that when it came time to torture the dog to death in front of them, they didn't care. That's it. That's it right there. Let's talk about feminism. Feminism is a subset of Marxism. Feminism seeks to make all women into diabolical narcissists. Now, in normal times, if there's any such thing, in a normal time, in a normal culture, there tend to be far, far more male diabolical narcissists than female. They think it's about 80-20 in normal times. What feminism wants to do is make sure that they're creating as many female diabolical narcissists as possible. Feminism is all about purging women of love. Purging women of love is critical to the overthrow of a culture. Feminism deifies women, the goddess, purges them of love of men as beneath them, men as inferior beings, right? And teaches them to purge all love and to even actively hate, resent, be envious of, and fear husbands and then their children. That's what feminism is all about. Purging women of love of their husbands and their children. Very successful they've been. As women descend into diabolical narcissism, experiencing only anger, hatred, jealousy, and fear, they also descend into sexual perversion. This is why lesbianism is rampant among the alpha feminist caste. So, you look at these hyper-militant, aggressive feminist nuns and other feminists in society. Most of them are homosexual or bisexual or just a barosexual in some way. A lot of them are de facto cross-dressers, male to female, even though they hate men. Most Catholic nuns today are diabolical, narcissist feminists and lesbians. Remember, even if they are chaste, even if they're not actually engaging in any sodomitical sex acts, these lesbian nuns, the same-sex attraction is a derivative of diabolical narcissism, and diabolical narcissism is the greater reality. These women should not be nuns. They should not be permitted anywhere near the religious life. Look at the damage that they've done. Look at the damage that they've done. Feminism paints sexual promiscuity as a sign of strength. The quote-unquote power bitch, aka the female sociopath, is utterly self-concerned, devoid of love, devoid of empathy, and is presented by feminists as the ideal woman. Let's talk about Islam. A totalitarian political system masquerading as a religion designed to purge humanity of all non-diabolical narcissists. The percentage of people in the Islamic milieu that are diabolical narcissists is the highest percentage of any population or group in the world, because that is what Islam is specifically designed to create. Classic alpha beta societal structure with the most advanced enforcement application. So this is why liberals and Marxists have a strong affinity for Islam. Islam is what they aspire to. They aspire to people who will murder at the drop of a hat in order to defend the party line. So you have this caste of alphas at the top of Islam shooting out the directives and the fatwas, and then a massive beta caste of diabolical narcissists. Again, why? Because so many of them have been sexually abused as children, male and female. This army, and that's what it is, this jihadist army, every single one of them is part of this narcissistic beta caste that's being tasked with overthrowing and overrunning the entire world. That's why all of these attacks, that's why this war that we are now in with the invasion of Europe and the terrorist attacks executed by Muslims all over the world in the Western world, it's all being done by civilians, because that is the army, okay? These days of having uniformed military, that's all over. That's a joke, okay? Civilians who are doing all this because they're part of that beta caste, which is endemic to Islam. Oh, and there's Rage Boy. There he is. Musloids, being diabolical narcissists, are loveless and animated by anger, hatred, jealousy, and fear. And also, because they are diabolical narcissists, it is a culture of utter mendacity. Everything is about lying. These people lie. You can't trust anything they say, including and the. Everything is a lie in Islamic culture. I read an anecdote not too long ago about a young American soldier who was over somewhere. I don't know if it was Afghanistan or something. And this young man, just despairing of all this, being told that he was there to help these people and we're going to help build their culture and so forth. And he said to his immediate superior, "Sir," and he looked out over the city, and he said, "Sir, this shit is effed up." And that's exactly right. The entire culture, it's an entire culture of diabolical narcissists. I mean, that's a mild way to put it. You can't fix that. You can't fix that without an enormous, enormous war or supernatural intervention. Islamic culture is perhaps the most sexually perverted and depraved culture in the world. Sexual abuse of children of both sexes is intrinsic to Islam because childhood sexual abuse is the surest way to make a child into a diabolical narcissist who will then be ready to expand the beta stratum. Other diabolically narcissistic paradigms of note, I could do presentations on each one of these by themselves. Freemasonry, the deification of man, again, a paradigm which basically wants to create an entire world of diabolical narcissists. Talmudic Judaism, Kabbalah, objectivism, hello, Ayn Rand, I mean, she's completely explicit about it. Was it rational self-interest? No altruism? It's all about diabolical narcissism. And she was also kind of a sex pervert herself. She was what a character. I've read Rand, and I will not deny that Rand has value in the sense that she was an eyewitness to the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, and she was able to write and say, if there is a communist takeover and a communist revolution in the United States, this is what you can expect it to look like. And that information is extremely invaluable. Very, very valuable, good information. Her other stuff is just diabolical narcissism. How about Americanism? Putting the state above God. Okay, think about what the roots of all this are. Luciferian, revolt against God. There it is. I'm sorry to tell you all that, but putting the state separate and then above God, that is a diabolical narcissist paradigm. Protestantism, hello, Luther, Henry VIII, textbook diabolical narcissist. Superfun rock band church. Superfun rock band church is just, liturgical diabolical narcissism. It's all about